Hello and welcome to episode 10 of The Dirty Corner. This is the podcast where I tell you stories from my experiences at art school. And normally I tell you about my own opinion and vantage points of certain incidences that happened, or incidents I should say, or instances. But I'd say incidents that happened. But in this episode I'm going to start telling you or reading you an email that describes the experience of another young artist at art school, to give a bit of balance so that you can see this school from someone else's vantage point. So I'm going to call this episode Okay, so I'm going to start by reading this email here. I'm writing this in regards to a complaint by Simon Renshaw, as I believe that his points are very true towards the fine art course and the negative impact it has had throughout our experience within the university. There is definitely a large difference towards the treatment those attending the studios receive in comparison to the ones that are studying at home. Personally, I have had a bad experience with this myself, like many others, as I am working at home due to current COVID circumstances. I have told the lecturers my reasons for studying at home, which is largely due to COVID, and they still tried to encourage me to attend. I eventually came to the conclusion of attending on Mondays, as I felt extremely pressured that my grade would be marked down if I didn't attend the studios. The first and only Monday I did attend, 15th of November 2021, after spending a long hour journey on a crowd-filled train, there was no lecturers around to help me. Even though they said they would be there to welcome me back, I could not work in the conditions of the studio. It felt dirty and my art projector was incompatible with the university Wi-Fi, so I decided to go back home where I could work more comfortably. I was then told that I should attend again next Monday, and they will definitely come and see me. However, I could not attend this due to travel issues. I was extremely lucky that I couldn't, because a couple of days later it was found that a few of the lecturers had confirmed cases of COVID. I was extremely disappointed at this, because my whole reasoning of not attending university in person was due to avoiding getting COVID. Excuse me. There is a large scale of favoritism and inequality within the fine art course, and this does not consist of being a favorite if you attend the studios regularly. This is why I believe that I, along with a lot of other students, have been at a large disadvantage since we have been working from home. I also find it unfair that one lecturer put me and two other students forward for a tutorial during a workshop week when we were meant to be given an activity to do. I believe that this was because they felt guilty for not checking on me when I attended the studio on the Monday. This is unfair on the other students, as although I was receiving a tutorial, I felt as though I was becoming a person that was getting in the way of their education for something that I could not control. And it was just as bad to be given attention that I felt everybody else deserved equally. There are only a few small problems that I have had throughout my 3 years within the university. Although I am aware of the 40-day complaints policy, I would still like to make you aware of some of the other events that have occurred towards me that still affect me now, and the work that I currently produce for my degree. I did not recognise this favoritism throughout the first year, when during the first 2 months of starting, a lecturer deemed me as unexperienced, she's put, but it's inexperienced, and told me my work was cliché. I thought at the time that of course I was going to be inexperienced, as I had just finished my A-levels and was only 18. Being the youngest on the course, I came to university to gain more experience for the art industry, so this shocked me and it knocked my confidence. I noticed this negative attention towards me and felt as though it was ageist as everybody else, especially the more mature students, were receiving excellent grades and feedback on their work, whereas I wasn't. It now turns out that these students are the ones working at the studio currently, which makes me feel like the favoritism towards these select group of students gradually got worse as time went on and is continuing to do so. During feedback weeks, I have noticed that the later in the day your feedback is, the worse and unencouraging the feedback you receive is. I find this unfair, as the people in the morning receive better feedback than the people in the afternoon. I suppose this is due to the lecturers feeling tired after their day. However, this should not be an excuse, as the little feedback we receive is used to improve our work, as we cannot do this when it is given to us in this way. And we cannot do this when it is given to us in this way. This also leads me on to address our dissertation feedback. I submitted my first draft of it on the 4th of November, and it took around 3 weeks to receive any written feedback. We were then supposed to have Teams tutorials explaining what they meant within their feedback, as it was given in bullet point notes. However, I still haven't received my tutorial by the person who marked mine due to the lecturer absences from COVID. This now gives me 1 week until the final submission is due. I don't feel like I have learned anything within my time on the fine art course over the last 3 years, and since I started this course my confidence has been knocked at every stage. I feel like I have lost my passion for the subject, and I am somewhere that I don't belong anymore. And I don't belong anymore. I am also extremely appalled to hear of other incidents that have occurred, like the events of bullying within the studios. However, I am not surprised, as the attitudes of some of the students and lecturers is ignorant and rude. I will be warning people who are considering this course and university not to join it, as I have had a horrendous experience here, and I do hope that my complaint, along with other students' complaints, will be dealt with accordingly. Okay, so that is a bit of a heartbreaking testimony, I think, from a student who I know and respect the artwork of, and she no longer makes art. I've tried to collaborate with her, but it's not something which she finds easy anymore, and you can see from that message why. There are other students who have expressed a difficulty in finding their voice and finding confidence, but you can see how unprofessional the tutors are with the students, as far as the students are trying to get feedback and trying to progress their work to the stage where they can submit it for a degree show, and the tutors aren't even around to accept or acknowledge it. I'm also trying to find at the moment, there was a testimony by a student which I thought was quite interesting. Let's see if I can find it here. It'll be in one of these folders. So yeah, that's just one student who I think was actually a very promising student. They were really talented and pleasant, and they were just completely thrown off course by this school and how poorly it was run. And I think that's shameful, to be quite honest. Okay, this is a statement, an artist statement from one of the students, which kind of corroborates what that student said to an extent. This year I've been experiencing a lack of motivation and inability to commit to creating work. I have started different projects, concepts and ideas, but nothing has prevailed. I felt as though I wasn't going to create anything I was proud and enthusiastic about. I carried on making in the hopes that something would jump out at me, but sometimes it simply doesn't happen. Instead of getting myself in a downward spiral, I kept persevering and try and fight this block that was consuming me. Artist block is a difficult thing to overcome, and having gone through it this year, I wanted to celebrate the fact that it is real and people shouldn't feel guilty about having it. The work I have on display depicts my lack of commitment and satisfaction with my work this year. Then they talk about the sculpture is a concoction that she started and disliked. The painting is a study based on inner turmoil, lack of inspiration and engagement with my discipline. It says her discipline. The video is narrated by her in a monotonous state in the hopes that repetitive motions will ignite ideas for a piece of art to begin. And then the fourth piece that she did are physical representations of the artist block situated around and within my work as a reminder of that overwhelming feeling that I have dragged around with me this year. Now, you may say that's just artist block, but I found that quite poignant, and so did my German friend. We discussed this because this young student also suffered a bit of unpleasant banter, let's say, from one of the bullies, and they'd say, oh, it's all in good fun. That student wasn't part of an out group necessarily, but it was a bit of an unpleasant environment. So it's just some people catch unpleasant statements and insensitive remarks that will affect them in that way where they will no longer feel engaged with the course or part of the group or confident in themselves. And that's a byproduct of this university's mismanagement and poorly equipped and educated tutors. But also, I'd like to talk about the fact that the first statement that I read, the testimony of the student, which is a different student, saying how she was reluctant to come in because of the pandemic, and then when she was encouraged to come in and felt pressured because she thought it'd affect her grade. First of all, that shouldn't be the case. During a pandemic, you shouldn't feel like I have to go in or it'll affect my grade. You should be given the freedom to work from home. It was a really strange time, and I was one of the people who worked from home, so maybe that's my bias, but I feel as though if there's ever a time to show leniency with students who don't want to go in and be on campus for something which can be done remotely, then they should be supported in that. That's something I'd like to find for you as well, is that maybe it's in the same folder, that I was given an email from a tutor because I used to refer to myself as a remote student. I was given an email saying not to call myself that anymore. Let's see. I'll just keep looking through it whilst I talk. But yeah, the fact that she then went on campus and still didn't receive any better treatment or even see the tutors sometimes. She'd go on campus and the tutors just wouldn't be there. So they'd pressure her to go in, and then she'd go in and there'd be no reason that she was there. There's no benefit at all except for to, see the atmosphere that was brewing because the bullies were given free rein. Unpleasant, I think, really unpleasant reality that was the case there. So, yeah, there are several things that I think were a problem, but that's why the complaint that was what I referred to as the group complaint, because it was me and several other students. We had, I think it was 3 prongs to the complaint. One was bullying, the other was poor education, and the third was a disproportionate access to learning, which is an expression I came out with, which just means that there were some who were given favouritism and some who weren't. And if you were in the group that weren't shown any favouritism, then you just didn't you didn't get the opportunities or the same information as the people who were in the favoured group. And that's, not acceptable. So, yeah, just really disappointing behaviour all around from the tutors, and you expect better, really. You expect the behaviour to be more professional and some equality. That shouldn't be too much to ask. But I thought it'd be interesting to show you the testimony of another student instead of just always hearing it from my vantage point, because it can be a little bit one-sided otherwise. So that was a couple of other students' experience, and I think it speaks volumes, because they just should never come to a point where a student is at their wit's end with trying to do the right thing and then feeling as though they can see others be given an advantage over them. It's just, it's just silly, isn't it? It's just childlike. Then, let me see. There's other things that I want to talk about here. I'm trying to find this one message from a tutor. I'm finding other stuff that I might bring up in another episode, because I have got certain things aren't quite as organised as I'd like them to be. Yeah, I can't seem to find. Yeah, I can't find it. I'll have to just leave that. But as far as the second student, the one which I read the artist statement from, that shows that her enthusiasm and confidence had disappeared. So she wasn't able to create in the way that she was hoping. She wasn't enjoying her work. She wasn't engaged with it. And as I said, people may say that's just part of being an artist. That's part of being a student. You will find this can happen. I'm not saying that isn't true. I'm just saying that it's consistent with a student who wasn't necessarily bullied. She, I don't think, has described herself as bullied, and wasn't one of the bullies. One of the other students. And it shows the impact on other students when there are bullies around, making the environment unpleasant. In my view, that's the result, is that you get students who just feel a bit lost. Subconsciously they know something's wrong. They don't want to stick their neck out and be part of a complaint, but they also find it hard to just keep their head down and get along with it, because they know that something isn't right. So that's why she spoke out in the way that she did. And the first thing that I read you, the longer statement, was a young female student who was part of the group complaint, and she was great. She was vocal, she was supportive, she's very intelligent, she's very talented, really good artist. And I'm not, I don't want to really disclose anyone's identity, because I think that this podcast is a bit more somber and serious, and it's more about me trying to give you a sense of why I think art school was so bad as an experience for me and my cohorts. Whereas I just think it was the course. It was just the fine art course, because as far as I'm aware, people on illustration and applied arts and photography and the other disciplines didn't have this experience. There was a couple of issues here and there, but nothing like what we had. And it was a combination of the tutors on the fine art course were really bad except for one, and the students were being pushed around by really negative personalities, people who were there. And when I was there in person, it wasn't to the point where I couldn't talk to them and address it, but as soon as I was working from home, they took advantage of the fact that they were there in person getting special treatment, and it was easier to sideline voices like mine, and the tutors had picked a side and thought, well, you're blaming us as well, therefore we're not seeing anything you say sympathetically. So it was just unfair. Now, going right back to the start of the statement, which this student said, let me see if I can find it again, where a tutor had said to her about her work, which I thought was horrible. Okay, she said, I did recognise this favouritism and thought throughout the first year when during the first 2 months let me start with that. During the first 2 months of starting, a lecturer deemed me as inexperienced and told me my work was cliché. I mean, let's say that you're a tutor. You'd have to have a pretty arrogant student to even feel inclined to say that. And even in that case, you wouldn't say it, because why? What's the benefit of saying to a student, you're inexperienced and your work's cliché? Even if there was several words and sentences in between those two statements, why would you say that to a student? That's not constructive. Saying you're inexperienced isn't constructive. You want to share information in a friendly and welcoming way, and not say you're lacking experience where I've got loads of experience. It's just braggadocious, and it's superficial. It's not actually offering anything. And saying that someone's work cliché is potentially true, but even if it is, it's very judgmental to say, and to a first year student who is 18 years old, it's just, why would you do that? That is a horrible way of approaching a discussion in any sense with a student. Now, I happen to know that as much as this student is confident and outspoken and really intelligent and talented, she's not cocky. She wouldn't have sort of said, yeah, well, I'm dead good at painting and drawing. She just wouldn't have said that. She just said, I really enjoy painting and drawing, and I like doing this kind of stuff. That's maybe what she said as far as showing what her work was like. That doesn't warrant saying you're inexperienced and your work's cliché. That's a horrible thing for a tutor to say. And I know that loads of people will have stories of tutors saying inappropriate things. I don't think it's okay for tutors to do that. Now, the tutor who said that isn't even on the list of tutors who I go through as the problem on the course. So that shows that among the tutors on the course, this one wasn't one of the biggest issues, and that's something which they said to this young woman. The other tutors, in my view, are much worse. Not in the way of denigrating someone's work, but as far as cultivating a negative environment, being massively unprofessional and manipulative, and just horrible in lots of ways. So this is why I'm quite passionate about speaking on these topics, on these events that have occurred. So I thought, share out these things. I think as far as the Wi-Fi is a problem. She mentioned the Wi-Fi isn't compatible with her laptop, which that's just one of those problems that happens in school. Why would she even travel to get? I mean, imagine travelling on a train during a pandemic that's packed, and you think this all works better at home. There's no tutor here. And that was in the second year maybe, or the third year maybe, I'm not sure. In fact, if it was the dissertation, it'd be third year. And in the first year, you were kind of span off the rails by a tutor being negative in an inappropriate way about your work. It's weird. I think it doesn't really add up as far as a fine art course. I could pick a couple of people immediately and say, let's put together a course, and we could construct something far more substantive with art history, with different practices and principles and experimentation and freedom and individuality and growth and challenges for a 3-year course that's far more beneficial than what we experienced that year on that course with those tutors. In my experience, in my view, other students will come out and say it was amazing, brilliant. I feel as though I've got evidence that it wasn't. from the graffiti to the testimony about bullying, to the confirmation about bullying from the victim, to an episode that's coming up soon. In fact, the next episode will be, I'll show more photographic evidence of the damage that was done to students' work, because that's a big deal as well. So the next episode will be on the physical damage that goes to the students' work, and then the episode after that will probably be on the physical and sexual assault, which is what I teased in a couple of episodes early on, saying that those are things that happened on this course. So that is something that I'll talk about in a couple of episodes. But the next one, I think, unless I swap it around, so forgive me if I do, but I'm pretty sure the next episode I'll be showing more evidence, visual evidence, of students' work being destroyed in different ways. And it's just horrifying to think that that was another factor. And then you get to physical and sexual assault. So just nightmarish stuff. But all of these stories lead to the Dirty Corner. The reason I called this podcast The Dirty Corner will be possibly the last episode. I'm going to try and plan it out so that the very last episode talks about why this podcast is called what it is. And so far, I think I've got another 5 episodes planned. So we'll see how it goes. I'm not planning on keeping it running forever, because as much as there's lots of different stories, I'm thinking I'd rather get on to more positive things. I've really enjoyed the feedback from people who watch these episodes. So if you've got any stories or any thoughts, even any defence of art school against what I've said, then please feel free to voice that in the comments. I'm not going to be hostile to that. And if anything, if there's good conversation happening, then I'm inclined to read them out on an episode, because I've done one episode already about comments that were on the previous episodes, because I think it's so positive to have people who I don't know and people who I do know contribute in that way. It's so much more of a beneficial environment and conversation. And I said I'm open to contradicting views, and if I can, I will find videos where students push back against what I say as well, because that exists somewhere, and I'll find it, because I'm not scared of sharing that at all. I just need to find it, because a lot of things get lost, because it's been a few years now since all this happened. Let me think, how many years has it been actually? It was, technically I graduated in 2022, so it's been 2 years, just under 2 years since I graduated, but everyone else graduated a year before me. I'll discuss that on an episode one time as well. So it's a big mess. It was unpleasant. That's some voice from other students. So I hope you found that interesting, because otherwise it's just, this happened to me and this happened to, to kind of every student. Whereas to actually hear the words of students there, I think is quite nice. Not nice what happened to them, but it's nice to hear their voice express how they felt and what happened to them in their own words. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.